Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2022 film Top Gun Maverick. And this sequel honestly pulls off a pretty terrific stunt. This is a sequel that, despite all the odds against it, despite the fact that it was a sequel that was gestating for over 30 years, it actually defies the odds and it's good. And not just good, it's really good. And even as a fan of Top Gun, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting this to be okay, and I was expecting it to be worth watching for the flight photography and the stunts, and for Tom Cruise. That's what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting the flight sequences to top what I saw in Top Gun and to set a new standard. I wasn't expecting the film to be as enjoyable and entertaining as it ultimately was. I wasn't expecting it to be as respectful of a sequel in terms of honoring the legacy of the first film as well as its fans. I wasn't expecting any of that because what I was expecting is the norm nowadays. A sequel or a reboot that just doesn't really get what made the first film tick. It doesn't really get what made the iconic previous film soar. And Top Gun Maverick goes against the grain and gets it. It actually understands what made the first film so successful in the first place. And as a result, it's successful. Wow! What a shocker. It's not that hard. You see, you would think that it was rocket science, considering how many other sequels and reboots have failed by just not following that simple formula. That being said, I still like the first film more. I don't really care for the current trend of people doing an inverted flip and just giving the first film the middle finger and saying it sucks now because Top Gun Maverick was surprisingly good. I don't get that. I've seen numerous articles and reviews now that have a headline that for some reason feels like they need to shit on the first film and say it sucks or it's a dated artifact and it was never good to begin with. And I don't understand because the script itself doesn't have that point of view. I mean, the script is clearly written by people who are fans of the first film and do whatever they can to honor it, but then you have articles that are reviews of the second film that are just taking a big fat shit on Top Gun. It's the logic just baffles me. And I don't get people who were fans of Top Gun prior to this film coming out who now are doing a 180 as well, and they're all like, no, that one sucks. Top Gun sucks. The second one is way better. Like, I don't understand that either. If you were never a fan of Top Gun in the first place, that's fine. Teach their own. And you like this more, that's cool. But if you were a fan of Top Gun, and then you saw this, and now you're no longer a fan of Top Gun because it's cheesy or whatever, like, come on, man. Like, just be a fan of both. That's not, there's no problem with that. I'm a fan of both. Now, the film is directed by Joseph Kosinski, and he did an absolutely amazing job with this film. He really did a great job directing this. It's not Tony Scott, but I wasn't expecting him to emulate Tony Scott. He still provides his own style and his own flair. And unlike his other attempt to do a legacy sequel in Tron Legacy, this has something to it that just feels closer to the spirit of its predecessor. And at the same time, it also has its own identity. But really, where this film shines is with its absolutely spectacular flight photography sequences, the stunt work with real pilots flying real planes, and just everything is done for real here, and it's absolutely astonishing. Like the sequences in this film involving fighter jets doing maneuvers and getting involved in combat are hands down the most jaw-dropping and spectacular sequences of its type you will ever see in your life. I'm not I'm not exaggerating it either. That's what people said when Top Gun came out. And Top Gun 2 manages to do the impossible and flies past those scenes. Top Gun was a groundbreaker when it comes to flight photography, and Top Gun Maverick just continues that trend and just shatters that ground. And the good reason for that is Kosinski is a very detailed, orientated filmmaker. But he's also a guy that's not afraid to take risks. He's not afraid to really go all out there. He's a guy who's always been willing to be more brave and courageous when it comes to his filmmaking, when it comes to the direction. And I think that definitely does show here with the way that he uses certain angles and certain techniques, and the way he moves the camera around, and the way he worked with completely revolutionary camera technology to shoot the scenes with the fighter jets and the actors. And I also just like the fact that Kosinski still maintains that sense of over the top fun that was so infectious about the first film. And there's a certain way to shoot a film where you can provide that kind of feeling, and I feel that Kosinski really knew how to do that and showcase that ability in this film. But yeah, the film really does shine the most when it comes to these sequences involving the fighter jets, or the moments where it's lovingly paying a homage to the first film, like Tom Cruise finding his old jacket and putting it on and going for a ride on the Kawasaki, stuff like that. That's where the film really does pop. I mean, even the football scene, which is in itself a homage to the volleyball scene in the first film, or even the opening sequence on the aircraft carrier. The film really does shine visually when it comes to those sequences. I even like the sequence at the end too, when Maverick gets in his own personal plane, and like the Cessna. I don't know if it's a Cessna, but it might as well be. It gets in the little plane and flies off into the sunset with Penny. I even love the way that that's shot. So yeah, it's a really well shot film in numerous different ways. And Kosinski already had a good relationship with Tom Cruise, and that definitely pays off too, because Tom is a guy who's very driven. He wants things done his way, and it really helps when he's got a filmmaker that knows what he's looking for and knows how to get along with him. And they, instead of butting heads, they are more like a single unit. And I think Kosinski's definitely one of those filmmakers, because the work that he did with Tom in Oblivion was really good too. So I think that just carried over here with Top Gun Maverick. Although it would have been ideal to have seen Tony Scott direct this, because he would have done a tremendous job in his own right. But it was still nice to see Kosinski come in and still take over for Tony Scott and pay tribute to Tony Scott, but not do it in a way that felt tacky, and at the same time making the film his own. The screenplay, it's good. The script by Aaron Kruger, Eric Warren Singer, and Christopher McQuarrie, it's definitely a lot better than the script for Top Gun 2 that Paramount put out there after the success of the first film. The script for Top Gun 2 initially, like the first draft, had Maverick as a flight instructor at Top Gun, and he is asked to teach a young hotshot female pilot that reminds him of himself. And doesn't that sound kind of familiar? Doesn't that sound like the kind of plot that you expected from Top Gun Maverick? Especially nowadays with the gender politics and the wokeness. And that was the original script, like from like the late 80s or something. But that never really came to be, thank God, because Tom Cruise asked for too much money, or things just didn't work out, so it never got off the tarmac. And that led to multiple other drafts and multiple other shots at trying to make the Top Gun franchise fly again, until the most recent script by these three guys, based on a story by Peter Craig and Justin Marks. Now, I do have some issues with this script, and I will get to those soon enough. But I'm going to start off talking about the things that really do work when it comes to this script. First and foremost, the way that it handles Maverick is great. These screenwriters nailed it. They paid respect to this character. They didn't break him down. They didn't humiliate him. They instead showed multiple reasons why Maverick matters. A lot of these other sequels, like The Last Jedi or Scream 5 or Bill and Ted Face the Music, they don't really have screenplays that provide reasons as to why these legacy characters matter, why these beloved characters actually matter in their world and in our own. Instead, they take all this effort to show why they don't matter as much. Maverick takes the opposite approach. And that's so nice to see. And you can see it being reflected in the film's box office. You bet there's a lot of word of mouth that's helping the box office climb to new heights right now. Because fans of the first film, who might have been leery of it but still gave it a chance, are now telling other fans of the first film who didn't even see it and weren't even going to see it because of the recent track record of sequels and all this wokeness and all this fucking political PC garbage, or tearing down beloved characters. They didn't want to see what happened to Dewey in Scream 5 happen to Maverick, or Luke in The Last Jedi. They didn't want to see that. And now they have people that they know and they trust who are saying that's not what happens, and they're like, oh, now I gotta see it. So it's definitely having an effect. And I'm hoping it causes a new trend and causes the trend of deconstructing beloved heroes to die for good, because there was no reason for that to begin with, especially if there's no redemption. You can break somebody down, but if there's no redemption, then it's pointless. Maverick has moments of redemption here. He shows his flaws, especially with how he handled things with Rooster, but he redeems himself in the end. I love the way that the screenwriters handled Maverick as a character. I also like the way that it handled fan service. Yeah, it's there, but it didn't feel like it was lazy or half-assed. It actually felt like there was a sense of love behind it and compassion. And it felt like it was nostalgic, but in a way that had some charm to it. So I like the way that it handled things in that respect. I like the fact that the plot this time around, it's not necessarily about the same kind of stuff. It's not the same film as Top Gun. I've seen people say that it's the same film as Top Gun, or it's the same film as Iron Eagle, and I don't get that. I mean, if anything, the main plot, the main conflict, it's it's the same as Iron Eagle 2. But I don't really have a problem with that because Iron Eagle 2 sucks balls. So if this is a better version of Iron Eagle 2, that's not really something that bothers me. Because, like I said, Iron Eagle 2 sucks. Yeah, you have an older pilot who teaches a group of young hotshot pilots to work together so they can take out some secret nuclear military base. Yeah, that's basically the plot of Iron Eagle 2. But Top Gun Maverick is a much better version of that plot. Even though it kind of has some of the same issues, surprisingly enough, in terms of some of the supporting cast, but I'll get to that later when I talk about the flaws. But yeah, I don't mind the main conflict. I especially like the fact that they have to alter their plan and how Maverick comes up with the idea to make it so they have to fly really low to the ground, and in order to drop these bombs and stuff like that, they have to be timed, and then they also have to do like a really high climb in the air, and leads to them being exposed to really high G forces. I love that concept. I think that was a great idea, and I thought it was executed really well. I also really like the moments where Rooster and Maverick are on the ground in the film's climax, where Maverick gets shot down, and Rooster uh, sacrifices himself or sacrifices his plane to save Maverick, and now they're on the ground and they're having to find a way to get back into another plane and get back into the fight, and then they wind up getting into a F-14, which I like that. I thought that was fun, and I thought the way that they handled it was definitely something that was a little bit more appreciative of like the old versus the new than some of the other films that have tried to do the same sort of thing. Although there was like a line of dialogue where Rooster said, it's a pile of ass or something, which I thought was like, you didn't really need that line. It kind of gave me flashbacks to The Force Awakens when one of the characters is shitting on the Millennium Falcon. But, it still, for the most part, still handled things well because it showed the F-14 still was able to get some shit done. And I also like the fact that there is absolutely no woke politics at all in this script. You even have a female character in this, a female pilot in Phoenix, but there are no moments where they try to prop her up and make her more important than anyone else in the crew just because she's got boobs and a pussy. I really like that. It's something that seems rather simple and something that scripts shouldn't get a lot of kudos for because it seems rather self-explanatory. Well, not necessarily self-explanatory, but obvious. But as you can see with a lot of these other films that have come out lately, it's not something that's as common as you think it would be. So I'm definitely appreciative of the lack of that going on in this script. And when it comes to like the training stuff, I love the scenes with Maverick one-upping the young hotshot students and taking them out one by one in the training sequence and really putting them in their place. And I also like the fact that the scene where they all play a sport does have a reason to be there, and it's not just kind of random like it is in the first. I do agree with critics when they're saying that it's nice to see it have a purpose than just to be an excuse to show some hot, sweaty guys shirtless for the women in the audience. But there are things that really do click when it comes to this script. But there are elements to it that fall short. They don't fly as high as other elements in the script. For one, the love story, it's charming, it's cute, but it's rather bland. It doesn't have that sizzle that the first film had with Charlie and Maverick. And I do not like at all how it treats Charlie as a speed bump in Maverick's life. I get Kelly McGillis didn't get along with Tom Cruise. I get that she's not in the same shape nowadays. But that doesn't mean you got to treat her like a speed bump. And barely even mention her in the film, if at all. Because I'm not even sure if she was even referenced in the movie or not. Because I saw it like a couple days ago, and my memory of that particular kind of thing is a little hazy. So, I don't like that. Kelly McGillis was a big reason why Top Gun was as successful as it was in 1986. I mean, the couple of Tom Cruise and Kelly McGillis was a power couple. That was one of the hottest on-screen couples of the 80s, if not of all time. And to just treat that like a speed bump is kind of shitty. And then at the same time try to prop up Penny, who was just a throwaway line of dialogue. Oh, you know, that time you tried to make it with the Admiral's daughter, the infamous incident with the Admiral's daughter. Like, okay, that's there as a line, but this film tries to make it as if that one line of dialogue equates to this character being Maverick's first love, or the woman that he always loved the most. And I don't like that. It feels very forced. And nothing against Jennifer Connelly. She was fine. The character of Penny wasn't annoying and wasn't an unlikable character by any means. But she's not as interesting as Charlie. I mean, Charlie was a outside expert who was brought in by the Navy to teach these pilots a thing or two, and there was that dynamic with her and Maverick, which was intriguing, and she could hold her own against Maverick and go toe-to-toe with him, not only in the bedroom, but also she could run circles around him in other capacity. She was a much more smarter and intelligent kind of individual. No offense to Maverick, who's smart on when it comes to like doing stuff with fighter jets. When it comes to other stuff, I mean, she was definitely the one that had the upper hand. And it just seems like with Penny, she owns a bar, she knows how to sail, and that's kind of about it. And then when it comes to the sex scenes, I know Tom is older and it's not the same kind of thing, but I'm sorry, they didn't have any heat. You got to have some heat. I'm not asking for an inferno, but something like light a fire. I mean, the sequences in Maverick might as well be from a Top Gun sitcom. Like, they are that lifeless in terms of the moments when they share their supposed love for one another. I'm sorry, them riding around on a motorcycle with Jennifer Connelly's arms around Tom Cruise is not enough to really show me that these two are madly in love with one another. But that's just how I view it. And the other pilots in this script, it seems like they have more screen time and more to do than some of the other pilots in Top Gun, but they aren't nearly as charismatic. They're not nearly as much fun. Phoenix, yeah, she's not written as some kind of gender politics bulletin board, but the character is boring. And she's supposed to be this really good pilot and one of the best, but I don't remember her doing anything. So that's not a good sign. And on top of that, the most memorable quotes or lines I got from her were all lame ripoffs of Vasquez's dialogue in Aliens. With the whole stuff where, oh, uh, uh, I'm glad they didn't mistake you for a man, hangman. Like, stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, you're just going to rip off Vasquez now? And I just wasn't that impressed with the writing for Phoenix. It's supposed to be this big deal and never really felt like it. Bob? What about Bob? I don't give a shit about Bob. I'd rather watch What About Bob with Bill Murray than any scene with Bob. Oh, look, Bob, he's called Bob because his name is Bob. Get it? Because his call sign is Bob. What? And then also, he's just a nerdy guy. Oh, just a nerdy guy named Bob. Woo, great. There were other characters too. There was like this Hispanic guy and this African American guy, and I don't even remember their names, let alone their call signs. And I remember all the call signs of all the other pilots in Top Gun. You have Goose, you have Slider, you have Iceman, you have Wolfman, you have Hollywood, you have Sundown, you have Merlin. I don't remember those two, the Hispanic guy and the black guy. I don't remember who. Oh, Coyote. Okay, that's who it is. Fritz. There's some guy named Omaha. There's another guy named Fanboy. Another guy named Payback. None of those guys really stood out. I mean, the parody cast of the characters in Top Gun from Hot Shots runs circles around the supporting cast of pilots in this script. And that's saying something. And I blame the script. There's too many pilots. Too many characters. They should have cut things down to just focusing on Hangman, Phoenix, and Rooster. Because all the other pilots, I get why they're there, but they just become interchangeable with one another or indistinguishable from one another. Like, they don't stand out. They all combine into some kind of homogenized blob. And also there's other stuff like the whole rift between Maverick and the Rear Admiral Chester Kane, played by Ed Harris. That just felt like they were just rehashing the whole antagonistic back and forth with Maverick and James Tolkan's character in Top Gun. I half expected Ed Harris to just quote another line from Top Gun and be like, hey, if you screw up this mission, and if you screw up and flame out at Top Gun this time around, you'll be flying crates of rubber dog shit out of Hong Kong. I half expected him to say that, because the two were so similar in terms of the way they were written. And Jon Hamm's character, nowhere near as intriguing or as captivating as Viper. He came across as an unlikable asshole, which is the point. Then he's supposed to have some change of heart, and you're supposed to kind of like him by the end, but I never really felt that way. Where Viper, from the very beginning, is a guy that you liked, you wanted to go to the bar with, you respected, and you admired, and you saw him as not only as a potential father figure for Maverick, but for any of the other pilots. And I know that Maverick is supposed to be that for these other guys. But if you think about it, a lot of the script has Maverick just one-upping and just embarrassing and wiping the floor with these pilots. Like, they can't even come close to his greatness. Like, he's the one that has to decide to break the rules and steal a plane and do the trial maneuver himself, and that leads to him becoming the leader of the mission. And then with the mission, he's the one that does like half of it. So it's like one of those things, it's like, yeah, the script didn't do the best job making it seem like his other pilots, his crew, were really all that integral to the success of the mission. Like, yeah, they were necessary because some of them you needed them because the other, well, one other group was responsible for hitting one of the other targets. But you already saw that Tom Cruise was capable of, Maverick was capable of doing both. He could blow up both targets by himself. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where, yeah, you just kind of felt like they weren't as integral to the plot as they really should have been. And I think a large part of this is because there's too many of them. Just focus on a handful, a select few, and then flesh out their characters more, give them more to do. Rooster is the character that I think has the most potential to be the strongest character. But for most of the film, he's just scared. He's reluctant to engage. Really, you might as well look at him as just a copy of Cougar in the start of Top Gun. And then you have the whole stuff where he's got a conflict with Maverick because of what happened with his father Goose, and Maverick took him out of the running for flight school and so on, and took years off his career, and it's that kind of stuff where you're like, okay, all right. But there isn't a lot of scenes with Rooster and Maverick, and the scenes that are there, they're rather short. And by the time Rooster shows more personality and has more to do, other than be mopey and just continue to fail over and over again, the movie's almost over. Like, Rooster comes into his own in the scenes when he's with Maverick on the ground and they're stealing the F-14. That's when they really come. That's really where his character comes alive. And by that point, the film's almost over. So, yeah, the script could have done a way better job handling these characters. And Hangman, I know a lot of people like Hangman, but Hangman's just a douchier version of Iceman. You see, Iceman is a character that, yeah, he was kind of a dick, but you still respected him and you still liked the guy. Hangman just came across as your typical unlikable jock type of character who you just wanted to see his ass get kicked and not much else. Yeah, he tries to redeem himself by the end, and it helps a little, but I still didn't feel that character was nearly as good as other people are making him out to be. Yeah, I just don't see it. Like, and then on top of that, I do not like how this script handled Iceman and Goose's wife. Why did you have to kill these characters off? Why? It was not needed. You had that scene with Iceman and Maverick, which was emotional and powerful, with Val Kilmer speaking in text, telling Maverick to let it go. That's all you needed. And then a few scenes later, Iceman dies, and it feels hollow and cheap, like their screenwriters are just trying to get some kind of emotional reaction from the audience, akin to Goose's death in Top Gun. But Goose's death in Top Gun was something that was unexpected. It was tragic, but it worked so well the first time around because no one saw it coming. With Iceman's death, it's telegraphed. You have lines of dialogue from Iceman's wife saying he's sick, he doesn't have much time. So it's not really something that comes as a surprise. So it just comes across as unnecessary. Why do you have to kill him off? And then it's equally unnecessary to kill off Goose's wife off screen, Meg Ryan's character. You didn't need to do that either. So it just seems like, other than Goose, which the film understandably focuses on because Rooster is a main character and he's Goose's son, a lot of these other characters, other than Iceman in his one scene, like, they don't get the best treatment. Like, Iceman, guess you could say he's treated fine, but I just don't think that character needed to die. So it's kind of a mixed bag. And then with like Charlie and Meg Ryan's character, just nothing. Either they get axed or not mentioned barely at all, if at all in the first place. Viper, I don't know if he was mentioned at any point. I don't remember if he was. So it's just one of those things where it's like, and what about some of the other pilots that were in Top Gun? Like, could have had them have a cameo in some capacity. Like Rick Rossovich, like what is he doing nowadays? But that's just a whole other story. But yeah, I don't like the way that things are handled there. And then when it comes to the humor, this film is just a nosedive. None of the jokes land. Nothing is really that funny. Nothing is at all memorable. I mean, there were so many memorable, funny lines of dialogue in Top Gun, or just iconic quotes like "I feel the need for speed." But there's nothing like that in this script. Nothing whatsoever. So yeah, I like the film quite a bit, but I do have issues with it, and mainly it comes down to the script. The pilots that kind of suck, other than Rooster, and even Rooster isn't as strong of a character as he could have been. Really, most of the script is just Maverick being awesome, which I'm fine with because Maverick is fucking awesome. But at the same time, like, you gotta have a balance. Because even in Top Gun, it wasn't all just Maverick being awesome. Iceman got his shots in, and some of the other guys that were a part of that whole mission all had their part. So there are a lot of moments here where you got pilots who are grounded and don't do anything, or pilots get shot down, or they fly off somewhere and retreat, never to be seen from again. So, yeah, I just not really the best setup when it comes to these other pilots. They don't feel like they are really in Maverick's league. And these are the new generation of pilots. But, despite the issues I have with the script, like I said, it does a great job with fan service. It handles the Maverick character almost perfectly. And it's still a good script. Flawed, but still good. And, of course, the cast. The cast is fine. The main headliner, of course, is Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is tremendous. It's like he never left this role. He fits into that jacket and that flight suit perfectly yet again. Same charisma, same energy. You love every scene he's in. He commands respect. He commands your attention. And when it comes to him in an action sequence, it's thrilling. It's exciting. And you buy it. Yeah, he's up there in age. But never for 1 second do you think that Maverick, despite how old he is, can't get shit done. Miles Teller, I thought he did a good job too as Rooster. There were some moments where they were definitely they were leaning a bit too hard into him being Goose's son, so they kind of make him like Goose, which I think they didn't need to do. And the scenes with Tom Cruise and Miles Teller when they're on the ground in the climax are really fun. But they're very brief and they're very short. And it's just one of those things where, yeah, I definitely feel it's a good performance, but it could have been great if there was more to his character and more in the script. So I don't really blame Miles Teller. Jennifer Connelly, she's fine too, but like I said, the script doesn't really do the best with her. Jon Hamm, great asshole. Don't really buy his change of heart. Glen Powell, yeah, he's not as bad as he was in Expendables 3, but I didn't think it was still that great of a performance. Wow, you played a good jock-style asshole that I want to punch in the face. Okay, good for you. Didn't really buy the whole, I like this guy now. Never really felt that way about him. It seemed like a really sharp turn. For most of the movie, he's a douchebag, he's an asshole. There's a few moments where, like, he has a little talk with Rooster before Rooster goes on the mission, wishes him luck. We're like, okay, all right. And then by the end of the movie, you're supposed to love the guy because he had that one little moment. It's like, it just doesn't pan, doesn't work for me. Lewis Pullman, nothing. Nerdy guy. Woo. Ed Harris, James Tolkan from Top Gun. He was just channeling James Tolkien. Val Kilmer, he was arguably probably the best performer in the cast, other than uh, maybe Miles Teller. Other than Miles Teller, like Val Kilmer was the other one for me in his one scene, in his one really affecting, powerful scene that honestly got me choked up because Val is he's struggling. He couldn't speak and but he still commanded a really strong presence. And then you had that moment where he actually spoke. It was some damn good acting, and I really, really thought Val Kilmer really made the most out of the little that he had here. Monica Barbaro, she's got spunk, she's got charisma, but the character was just written poorly. And then the rest of the cast: Charles Parnell, Jay Ellis, Danny Ramirez, Greg Tarzan Davis. His name is more interesting and fun than he is as an actor. Manny Jacinto, Jack Schumacher, Jake Picking, Raymond Lee, Kara Wang. Like, none of those characters, none of those performances, to correct myself, really flew very high for me. They were just middle of the road at best. Like, the best way to describe these performances from the pilots, other than Miles Teller, for the most part, maybe Glen Powell, is they were just a bunch of Tim Robbins from Top Gun kind of performances. They're fine. Nothing really that special, though. Just a bunch of Merlins. And the film also featured some really impressive cinematography by Claudio Miranda. I mean, this film looks absolutely gorgeous. Very similar to the first film in that regard, in terms of just how great it looks on camera. And just so many scenes, from the sequences of the jets flying in the air, from the climax when they're flying around through the mountains, and to other sequences of just Maverick on his bike riding around on the tarmac, or even the sailing sequence. Like, there's just a lot of really great looking shots in this movie. I also thought it had some great editing, some excellent editing by Eddie Hamilton. Just really matched the intensity of all the sequences, and even in the scenes that were editing in footage from the first film, I thought those were edited in a way that felt new. Like, it was old, but still new, because of the way that the editor approached those sequences, and still maintained that fun vibe that the film was trying to go for. And there's a lot of consistency with the editing, too. There weren't a lot of moments where things just kind of came out of nowhere in terms of certain techniques or choices. The score... This score is nothing special. It pretty much stays grounded. It's stuck on the tarmac. It doesn't fly. I understand why some people think it's decent, but the more I think about it, it's just the epitome of generic. This is some of Hans Zimmer's most weakest work in a long time. Lauren Balfe also did a little bit here. I guess Lady Gaga. The best bits of the score are just Harold Faltermeyer's music. That's the best bits of the score. Like Hans Zimmer's work, Lauren Balfe's, Lady Gaga, none of that stuff even remotely comes close to being as awesome, as great as Harold Faltermeyer's already existing score. And honestly, this film could have benefited from having more of Faltermeyer's score in it. For instance, I think it should have had the track Memories. I don't know why that was not included in this film, especially when Maverick's having a flashback to Goose. Should have just had the same piece of music, because it's a great piece of music, or at least did a remix. Speaking of remixes, some of the sequences that have the most effective moments when it comes to the score all feature Faltermeyer's music. Whether it's a remix or just a copy, of the exact score just thrown in there. I get it. It's a legendary score, but that doesn't mean you just need to just half-ass it. Hans Zimmer, I know he's capable of doing some really great things, and the score here was just like, eh. It sounded like stuff I've heard a million times, and it just was nothing really that special. And the soundtrack wasn't that great either. I know a lot of people love the Lady Gaga song. I just thought it was okay. Definitely isn't Take My Breath Away. And the other songs, original songs on this soundtrack, suck. Like the hip hop song that plays during the football scene, hot fucking trash. Terrible. Cannot even come close to Playing with the Boys by Kenny Loggins. I mean, none of the original songs that are featured in this film even come close to Through the Fire by Larry Green. Like, this original soundtrack is not even at all close or even on par. Definitely not on par with the soundtrack for the first film. And the other songs they chose too just felt out of place. Like Let's Dance by David Bowie. Like, why is that in there? They're one of the main, I guess, songs that Hangman really likes. I think it was, I'm trying to remember what song it was, but it was a song we were like, really? That song? That's the song that you pick for like the song that you think is so badass? And then on top of that, during admittedly a really fun scene where Maverick is taking out these pilots one by one in the training exercise and testing their mettle, you've got the fucking song from CSI Miami that I'm beyond tired of hearing at this point. It's a fucking meme and a joke. The I won't get fooled again. Like, why is that in that scene? So, yeah, Danger Zone is still the best song that was featured in this movie. So, yeah, Harold Faltermeyer's score is still the best score, and Danger Zone is still the best song. Like, try a little harder. So, yeah, I mean, I still really like Top Gun Maverick, but I'm sorry, there's some things about it that I think are a little rant-worthy. And the score and the original songs are definitely some of those things, and so is some of the other stuff I already ranted about. Despite its long running time, it actually does have some pretty good pacing. I really wasn't that bored, despite not being as invested in some of the characters. And what Top Gun Maverick gets done right, it absolutely excels. And that's a big reason why I like it. And despite the issues that I do have with Top Gun Maverick, I still highly recommend this film, because this is a spectacle that should be seen on the biggest screen with the loudest speakers. It's a film that actually does merit the theatrical experience and really does showcase how it still means something. But not only that, it showcases how characters like Maverick mean something. And it's a terrific tour de force of a film that really shows that characters like Maverick, who are larger than life, really should be held in high regard, should be respected, instead of the opposite. And it also showcases that you can make a fun popcorn movie, and that still has merit too. It doesn't always have to say a whole lot about society. It doesn't have to preach a message. It can just be entertaining. And it could still be worthwhile and worth watching. So, yeah, that's my long-winded review of Top Gun Maverick. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you later. See ya.